And throughout the day, we will continue to focus on that COVID situation. But in terms of the elections, lots of fairly remarkable developments across the country, many along expected lines, some surprises. But let's turn our attention first to Bengal. But as you can see over there, the Trinamool Congress's performance in these Bengal elections, absolutely remarkable. If these leads turn out to be results, or even if it goes a little bit below, given the trends that we are seeing thus far, it appears that it's going to be a landslide victory. This is Mamata Banerjee's Trinamool Congress, which in the last few months has lost leaders. It has seen a BJP campaigning at the grassroots level. It's seen Amit Shah, the Prime Minister, repeated rallies taking place. They say they've been the victim of CBI cases, of ED cases. Mamata Banerjee herself was hurt, but then there was the entire rhetoric associated with football and Khala or game, and the Trinamool Congress now saying that Khala jeete gachi. In other words, they have won the game. But we will know this finally in the next couple of hours for sure. But the sense of excitement and joy quite obvious now in the Trinamool camp. For the BJP, remember, if they do end up losing Bengal, as it appears very much likely to be the case, then it would be an effort which has not worked out at all. Remember, Mission Bengal was one of their primary goals, something that had been announced, and they put in a huge effort at trying to take over Bengal from the Trinamool Congress. That appears not to have worked out at all. Now, there are celebrations which are taking place. We should point out that it's unfortunate in a sense that in this COVID reality, you've still got people out there, some without even wearing masks. But there is that sense of enormous joy. It's been an incredibly long election in Bengal, spread over many phases, over a long period of time. And therefore, now finally, there is a sense of closure with the Trinamool believing that with this lead of 205, and remember the majority mark is 148. So even if that majority, even if that leads position does come down, it appears almost incomprehensible, despite what the BJP may claim and what Dilip Ghosh, the BJP leader of the in Bengal, has said. It seems highly improbable that there would be anything very, very different in terms of who the eventual victor would be. An incredible victory for Mamata Banerjee for all of the reasons which we've spelt out throughout the day. Let's take a look at the vote share at this juncture. Let's look at the vote share that the Trinamool and the BJP have. Just look at the left, completely vanquished in what used to be their stronghold. 49% of the vote share, with leads still being translated into results with the Trinamool Congress. The BJP 37%. So the vote share of the BJP is significant, but look at where the left is and look at where the Congress is. The Congress isn't even registering as a very significant force in Bengal at all. But the Trinamool's performance, in a sense, stopping the juggernaut of the BJP in an area where the BJP did everything to try and secure a presence. It's quite remarkable at this stage. Let's go across to Mamata Banerjee and Saurabh Gupta as well, who've been tracking so many aspects of all of this. Now, Mamata, let's talk a little bit about, we've spoken about Mamata Banerjee, let's talk about Prashant Kishore as well. He said the BJP will not get past 100. At the moment they are 84, it appears he was right. Then there was this incredible controversy about this clubhouse conversation where he apparently said, oh, look, the BJP is ending up doing quite well. Of course, he did clarify. But it appears his initial assessment was more than correct. The BJP just not in the same ballpark as the Trinamool, even if there are changes now.
That's right. No question, Mr. Kishore had it spot on. There were many doubting Thomases, and I will confess that in a few conversations with him, I also sort of questioned his figure, but it looks like he was spot on. And what I'm hearing is, from people who know how he operates, what I'm hearing is that he never underestimated the rival, the foe in this particular election, which is how, they are explaining also, what Mr. Prashant Kishore had to say in that leaked clubhouse conversation that we have all heard, where he was very confirmed, of course, that Mr. Modi was a big factor and no question about that. But what seems to have worked for him, or what he definitely kept his eyes on, is that don't take the enemy lightly, and that is how it seems he has managed to sort of stick to his word of under 100 seats for the BJP. What is interesting is all the points that he had raised in the run-up to the elections. One was the slicing of the Bengal voters into SC/ST. That was one focus area. Remember, in 2019, the BJP did very well in Jungle Mahal, which is dominated by the SC/ST community. And, the BJP did well there. And in between 2019 and 2021, the Trinamool focused on regaining lost ground there. Not just Jungle Mahal, but up in North Bengal as well, in Cooch Behar, where you had this SC community, extremely influential, of the Rajbangshis. The Trinamool went out and did some work there, and we are getting reports that up in North Bengal too, there have been some gains by the Trinamool Congress. Once again, in 2019, Trinamool's performance up in North Bengal was very poor. So one is the SC/ST factor. The other factor that Mr. Prashant Kishore is very fond of championing is the women's vote. He has been a consistent champion of the fact that Mamata Banerjee has always stood by and looked at the interests of the women, and that has worked in her favor. Right. Now remember, back in December, the Trinamool Congress government started this program called Duare Duare Sarkar, in which Mamata Banerjee distributed health cards called Shastro Shati. And what was perhaps key in that, and perhaps different from what Mr. Modi was offering, is that the card was in the name of the female head of the family.
Right.
So empowering women, that seems to have worked immensely in favor of Mamata Banerjee, and that's been
let me
one
ask
of
you this.
the key focus areas of Mr. Prashant Kishore.
The linguistic and the cultural divide, in a sense, Bengal never had a leader, and the BJP would contest this with Shubhendu Adhikari, but they never had a Bengali leader quite of the stature of Mamata Banerjee. And if you've had the BJP applying its formula number 1, Amit Shah and Narendra Modi in Bengal, that's evidently not worked. Would you say that the linguistic gap, the Didi or Didi rhetoric versus Mamata's Khala Hobe rhetoric was a mismatch, that in Bengal, where linguistic factors and cultural and heritage factors are so much, the insider-outsider sort of divide was profound in determining the outcome of this election?
Certainly so. If anyone disagrees, it will be at a certain risk. Certainly. First of all, remember the outsider campaign that the Trinamool Congress began. Now, when they began it, there was a repercussion. There were concerns that the huge non-Bengali community, people who are not of Bengali origin but have been living here for years and years, there was a concern that there may be a backlash. But I remember Mamata Banerjee holding a meeting, one of those rare ones, in the Trinamool office with a whole lot of non-Bengali people over there from Bada Bazaar and other areas. And she started talking about how she loves the litti chokha that her driver sometimes brings her, or khatua, or her familiarity with this non-Bengali culture. Also, she pushed that to counter any impact that the whole outsider slogan may have.
Okay, Murthy, I'm interrupting you for just a moment. I want to quickly go across to Saurabh as well. Saurabh, what exactly is happening where you are outside Mamata's residence? There shouldn't be celebrations, but are there signs of any?
Well, there shouldn't be. The message
because
from the leadership
COVID, for no other
is
reason. She's winning the election.
Cadre is out on the streets.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The leadership is saying this is no day for a celebration. We won this, but please let's focus on COVID. But the cadre is something that, is definitely out on the streets. And why are they out on the streets? Every corner practically now is blasting Khala Hobe on loudspeakers. The song, the war cry sort of the Trinamool to counter the Jai Shri Ram of the BJP. And if you recall, when we had done that interview with Devanshu Bhattacharya, who had written that song, he said that this will counter the BJP's war cry, this will enthuse our cadres. That's exactly what it seems to have done, but it's gone beyond election day. And right now the call the need of the hour is to make an appeal to supporters to stay in, to maintain social distancing, wear masks. But for some time, one suspects, at least for a brief while, that supporters are going to or seemingly letting their guard down for a bit, because it is a stupendous victory and something that Mamata Banerjee has pulled off against the complete juggernaut of the BJP, as you said.
Monideepa, I interrupted you very briefly. You know, the imagery of Ek Hala Hobe associated with Mamata in a caste, you know, the political imagery right in the middle of the election campaign itself, how is that something which had a huge impact?
Well, you know, the BJP, of course, you know, mocked it, and that perhaps hurt it some more. But clearly, the wheelchair against the BJP juggernaut, that is an image, a contrast that has worked with the voters. A woman on a wheelchair taking on the might of the BJP, you know, the Prime Minister, the Home Minister, Mithun Chakravarti, film stars, ministers, and that one woman on a wheelchair. Certainly, that has worked in favor of Mamata Banerjee, and that famous Khala Hobe, of course, the one that has Mamata Banerjee playing football with a plastered foot. Those kind of memes has really, it seems, worked in Mamata Banerjee's favor. I wonder what will happen today. Will she finally step out minus the wheelchair? I know that in her recent interactions, she has said that her leg is much better, just that she needed time to return from the districts to Kolkata to get her bandage cast removed.
Saurabh, what's going to happen to all of those leaders who ditched Mamata Banerjee?
A key question, I mean, and most of them don't seem to be winning. So, how they're going to manage, what they're going to do. In fact, there are a lot of murmurs about some of them already sort of trying to, you know, find some way out. In fact, there are several rumors doing the rounds about one senior leader. But of course, we won't take those names because we don't have anything concrete. But Trinamool sources are telling me that, look, we knew that these people were anyways going to lose. That's the whole reason why we didn't give them tickets.
Right.
So, they don't matter. We've given tickets to winning candidates who won. So
all right,
that's the whole thing.
Saurabh,
clearly,
Saurabh, one moment, we've got one of the stars of the moment, Prashant Kishore, who will be in conversation with Srinivasan Jain in just the next few moments. Vasu, across to you.
Thanks very much indeed. Time now for a big NDTV exclusive. There have been many men and women of the match today. I'm joined by somebody who's one of them, one of the men of the match. Prashant Kishore is joining me live from Kolkata. He's someone who's not actually fighting this election from the front, but fighting it from the back. Not just in West Bengal, by the way, but also in Tamil Nadu. So actually two in the bag today, Prashant Kishore. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Congratulations, by the way, to you.
Thank you.
And
thank you. Thank you, Vasu.
Okay. And also, Prashant Kishore, we'll try and put up that tweet of yours where you said that if the BJP crosses 100, you will give up this profession for good. Now it looks like you won't have to do that. In fact, you might have more clients now. Are there already people phoning you?
Well, I might give up this job even after the victory. So that's not an issue.
No, but tell me, it's been really quite remarkable, because it did look at times that you had your backs to the wall. But looking at the numbers right now, is this something that all along, I'm talking right now of West Bengal, that you felt that you were able to get to this number, that you were going to cross 200, or were you nervous? Be honest now, at some point.
Well, we have been confident about doing very well, and I've been on public record on this. Whether it will be 200 or 190, these things are very difficult to gauge. But we have been quite confident about it. To my mind, all what BJP was trying to do was to build up this massive propaganda that they are winning. Bengal. This said, as I have said before in my conversation with many other people, BJP is a formidable force, will continue to be probably a very formidable force here. Results might look to you one-sided, but that does not mean that there has not been a tough fight. It has been a close fight, it has been a tough fight, but we always were confident of the fact that given the situation what it is here, we would be, Trinamool would be able to win many more seats than what most people were willing to give.
What do you think really happened though, Prashant, during the course of the campaign? Take us through it step by step, because when you started off the campaign, you did seem somewhat more upbeat and more confident. But as it built up, and particularly as Mr. Modi came and again, did you start to see it shift away and towards the BJP?
See, when we started from that time onwards, we have gradually built on the strength of Trinamool. Trinamool leadership post their Lok Sabha performance have been very cognizant of the weakness or the course correction that they should or they should have done. And we have been proactively trying to address those issues, both on the government side as well as on the political side. I think partly the victory is attributed to that, but you know, by and large, it's the strength of the Trinamool here, the leadership of Mamata Banerjee, and people still having the faith and the trust in her leadership that has helped Trinamool win this elections.
So, when you said course correction, you're talking about all the steps that you've spoken about elsewhere as well, that there was this sort of public anger, particularly after the cyclone Amphan, worries about whether aid was reaching, worries about corruption, and then you had to find ways of fixing that. Talk about that.
Well, it's not about Amphan. See, as a political party, what happened, you have to be cognizant of what is happening around you. In Lok Sabha, Trinamool did get the setback in terms of you know, the number of seats which they were expecting to win versus the number of seats they won. The good thing about them is that they took cognizant of, they took the responsibility, they recognized where they need to do the course correction, and they did what was needed on their part. Parties can win or lose.
Like what?
It's important that you take, you recognize that yes, you need to make amends with what you are doing, the way you are organizing, the way you are addressing the issues that people expect you to address.
Right.
And probably where BJP has not accounted for the change which Trinamool brought into its working, its effort, its formation post Lok Sabha, and that is why they are up for the surprise.
Right. But you know, really the remarkable thing is that the BJP, through everything at this election, you know, you had close to 40 rallies, 50 rallies by the Prime Minister, Amit Shah, the works, all the big leaders. You know it more on the ground than even I do. And yet, Mamata Banerjee pulled it off.
Well, you know, both sides, whenever you have a tough election, both sides are entitled and they are likely to do all these things what you are mentioning. Sometime it works, sometime it doesn't work. Just because they have done 40 rallies, that doesn't mean that Trinamool is going to lose. This is something which is what I say, people who are not necessarily very well informed.
Yeah.
They extrapolate just by doing it. You could do rallies, very big rallies, you could be very successful in doing those things and still can lose elections.
Right.
When Trinamool lost a few seats in Lok Sabha, if you look at the track record of their rallies, Mamata Banerjee used to get as big a crowd as she ever got in her life. But still she went on to lose 18 Lok Sabha seats. So sometimes we give too much importance to what you are doing. See, it's a first past post system. So you might get a lot of things going for you. You might do many things right. Still you could end up on the losing side if the other side is doing better than you.
Right.
It's a relative game.
No, that's fine. But at the end of the day, when you look at the fact that Mr. Modi came, campaigned there, you yourself have said in conversations that actually turned out to be, became controversial at one point, that you said he's hugely popular in West Bengal. In your reading, why did that not translate into a win for them or a better performance? That you had
but
that
again,
much
I will
traction
say the
for
same
him,
thing
for
what I said before. No, before I am repeating what I said before. This is a misunderstanding on the part of those who analyze these things or comment about these things. Just because Mr. Modi is popular, that does not mean that they are going to win all elections. And just because he is drawing a lot of people in the rally, that does not necessarily mean that Trinamool is weak than BJP. But as a person who is working with Trinamool to help them win these elections, I am within my right and this is my style. I would take cognizance of the strength of BJP. Anyone who does not take the strength of their opponent, to my mind, is not right in their approach. Okay. Some people want to say that it was the admission on my part of their strength. I am saying on record, and I have been saying this ad nauseum on record, that I do recognize that BJP has great strength. And even in their defeat, I am saying that they are quite a strong political force in Bengal.
Okay.
But that does not mean that they are going to win. And for someone like me, unless I know and take cognizance of the fact that what are their strengths, how I am ever going to defeat them?
Okay. The other thing which you also said, which again, created a bit of a flutter, was that you said that there's a lot of polarization which is happening, that there is a perception in Bengal, especially amongst Hindus, that there's been a lot of minority pandering, and we saw how the BJP tried to leverage that. How did you fight that? How did you push back against that?
See, Vasu, let me say this on record. We, in the victory, I want to say that all the parties who are part of the democratic setup in India, they must raise their voice against the election commission, the way elections are conducted. It is completely partial. The way they are allowing the ruling party to conduct and behave in the elections, they are functioning just as extension of BJP. Only if election commission would have been impartial, these numbers would have been much different. I am telling you, whatever number BJP is going to get, a substantial portion of that seat would be coming because of the systemic support they have got from election commission and the similar organizations
who
were responsible to conduct impartial elections.
In what way? In what way have they favored the BJP? I can give you,
I am telling you with all responsibility, I have never ever in last 7-8 years what I am doing this kind of work I have been doing last 7-8 years. I have never ever seen an election schedule as it has been made in West Bengal. During the COVID time, exposing millions of people to something which is unpardonable to my mind. You have made 45 days, everyone to suffer for 45 days. Just because you wanted to give this advantage to BJP, who all the world thinks that they are very good towards the end. So they wanted to have this extra number of days before every assembly goes to poll. And for that you have extended this election from what could have been done in 5 days or 10 days or 15 days, you extended it to 2 months.
Okay. So you're saying the schedule
Someone
was designed...
need to talk about this. Second,
yes, go ahead.
Not only schedule.
Yes.
The second thing is the way religion is being used. To the best of my understanding, as per the rules of the law of the land, you must not use the religion blatantly, at least, to seek vote. The entire BJP campaign in the West Bengal has been in the name of Jai Sri Ram, Om, using symbols, using temples, religious sloganeering. Have you seen a single notice or single effort on the part of election commission to stop that? It's a very serious thing. We might have won this time in Bengal, but I am telling you, this is not good for democracy. So all political parties must object to the conduct of election commission, the way they are running elections. It is completely partial.
Okay, okay, that is a point that is noted, but you still didn't answer my question. How did you fight this very, very divisive campaign, this very, as you put it, like centered around Jai Shri Ram? How did you as a party fight that? What strategy did you use?
Towards the end, we have went through the hell with a blatantly partial election commission. We went through the hell. They gave the free hand to BJP to do whatever they wanted to do.
Okay. No, but Prashant,
otherwise these results would have been far more different than what it is looking.
Okay.
And I am saying this in our victory.
Okay.
If I would have been saying this after losing, all of you would have said that I am cribbing because I have lost.
Right.
I am telling in our victory, I am telling election commission has been blatantly partial, and they made our life so difficult, and they did everything that possibly could have been done on their part to help BJP to win Bengal.
Okay, that point is noted, but I'm asking again, how did you fight polarization as a political party?
See, I have explained this in great detail. Those who there is polarization, we have to take cognizance of that.
Yes.
But polarization has a limit. If you look at the data over last 60-70 years, with polarization you can mobilize close to 50 to 55% of the vote of a community which you are targeting. It applies both to Hindus and Muslims. If you look at the vote share of BJP, it will turn out to be the same. They were looking at 70% of Bengal. They are going to get 50-55% of that, and that's the limit of polarization. I'm glad this holds, because this gives confidence to many other parties and political activists who would like to take on BJP, that don't get afraid by this bogey of polarization.
Okay.
There is a limit to the polarization and how much vote it could result into in favor of BJP.
But what about
they create this hype much before the election, and you think that since it is polarized, you don't even make an effort and you give up and they win, and then you think that they won because of polarization. You don't win because of polarization, you win because you give up without fighting.
Okay, but what about the counter accusation that Mamata Banerjee herself does minority pandering, that she also made that speech where she said that all the Muslims must unite and vote for the Trinamool? The election commission actually penalized her for it?
Well, if Mamata Banerjee was penalized for making a statement which actually is half truth, because she has given call to both Hindu and Muslim to unite, then to my mind, entire BJP campaign, star campaigner list should have been barred.
Okay.
If she was barred for using religion, a religious symbol or religious slogan for vote, then nobody from BJP should have been allowed to campaign even one day.
Fair. Okay.
For the first time, I am in this domain. Vashu, I am in this domain for last 6-7 years. I have never ever seen a more blatant use of Jai Shri Ram or the Hindu religious symbols and slogans as much as we have seen in Bengal.
You know, I have to say this is true, because I attended a rally of the Prime Minister in a place called Kalyani, 2 hours north of Kolkata, and it was all Jai Shri Ram from beginning to end. I have not seen that even in Uttar Pradesh. I have not even seen it in a Yogi Adityanath rally. It was very, and it was really surprising to hear it in West Bengal, of all places.
The real problem is not that BJP was trying to use it or BJP was using it. For me, the real issue is what was Election Commission doing during all these things.
Of course. Fair enough. But I still want to ask you, while I'm not saying there's an equivalence between Mamata Banerjee making that appeal to the Muslim voter and all the comments we heard from the BJP side, but at the same time, would you say there's still some merit in the argument that Mamata Banerjee was guilty of minority appeasement in her 10 years?
No, see, the fight before these elections have been more to see which party gets the vote of the minority community. So there might have been an extensive outreach towards that.
Right.
To some it might look, and some are entitled to call it a minority appeasement. I also want to clarify here something more substantive. Couple of leaders have given data saying that, you know, you can't call it minority appeasement or outreach because minorities are still not having the best developmental indicators.
Yes.
These two things are separate. We need to understand, you could use a community for your political benefit and still that community might not benefit.
True.
We have seen in states like UP, you have used Dalits as a vote bank, but that does not necessarily mean that Dalits would move on the developmental parameters.
That's true.
Or reverse, just because Dalits have not moved on the developmental parameters in UP, is not to say that no one has used them as a vote bank.
No, no, that's true. You're right. There is data that shows you that the status of minorities in West Bengal has not actually improved in the past several decades. It's only changed incrementally. But you're right to say that that doesn't mean there hasn't been the use of them to try and become a vote bank. That's an interesting and important point. Two different things. But I want to ask you a little bit, Prashant, about working with Mamata Banerjee, because you know, she's quite a how do I put it? She's a unique leader. She's got her own style. Supposed to be quite temperamental. What was it like to work with her?
No, I have said this before election also. I have no complaints to on that count. She has been absolute delight to work with. Lot of people, when I came here in 2019 June, lot of people said this privately as well as on the public platform that no one can work with Mamata Banerjee. But I tell you, it has been absolute pleasure working with her. Whatever we wanted to do, whatever was needed to be done, she has been extremely receptive, and she has been absolute delight to work with. Well, I have no complaints to make, and that's the reason why I said that if after having all the support and cooperation from her side, if still I am not able to deliver, I must accept and be humble enough to accept that maybe I don't know how to do an election campaign.
But you
and hence I should quit.
Okay, but you worked with many leaders. Give a comparison. Like, what's the difference between her and some of the others you worked with?
It's very difficult to compare. I think let's not get into
comparison. I meant
every individual has a different way
but I meant
working.
Like, okay, but tell me one or two qualities about her which stood out for you. Like, you know, is it the way she takes decisions? Is it a political instinct?
Well, I would be again repeating myself on this.
Yes.
Her strength is her ability to connect with the people. When she is among the masses, when she is dealing with the masses, she probably connects better than many other leaders I have seen.
Okay, so there's a connection there. But she was open to having you come on, you know, take over so much of the campaign, you know, take decisions. She was okay with all that?
I would presume she was okay. That's why that is why we would be able to do what we have been able to do.
But there was a point where so many leaders were quitting and blaming you for it.
Yes, but see, I have been telling this. People were quitting were actually largely as part of our own design. If you were discredited, if you were in hand in gloves with BJP, if you are the one against whom people were in your area, you would be pushed out. And BJP were very happy at that time, taking them in on their side. Look what the results are showing. All those, and most of them, I would say, if not all, are losing their elections.
You're talking of Suvendu Adhikari amongst others, but let me use that.
I don't.
No. Fine.
Some of these guys who have been hyped up by media, I told that time also, and I am repeating. It is Mamata Banerjee who matters. Just because Prashant Kishore has done an election, that does not mean that I am to substitute Mamata Banerjee. The lieutenants could change, but the core of the party is Mamata Banerjee. People have been voting for Mamata Banerjee. If I start feeling that I have become very powerful or I have become popular, then I would make the same mistake what some of these guys have made. They've mistaken they mistook the support which they were having because they were the lieutenants of Mamata Banerjee. They mistook that for their own support, and that is why they have paid the price.
But what about Mamata Banerjee herself? Was there at any point that she was starting to get a little daunted, you know, when the Prime Minister, carpet bombing, very, very intense campaign by the BJP? Did she ever seem daunted or jittery at any point? Again, be frank.
Whenever you are against a party as formidable as BJP, whenever you are going into an election as high decibel, as important as the one which we have seen in Bengal, you have to be cautious. You cannot be complacent. You cannot take things lightly. You cannot be overly confident. But that does not mean that we were scared or we were thinking that we cannot defeat
you didn't
BJP.
answer. Okay, you didn't quite answer my question. Did she at any point seem a bit, you know, worried, jittery, or just?
Well, Vasu, I can tell you on record, all the leaders I have worked before election, before these results, everyone get a little bit jittery, everyone gets nerves, everyone is human. And or for that matter, any other leader, they might appear very differently on the camera or in the public. Everyone gets nervous.
Okay, everyone.
It is human to get nervous.
It's human. Okay, so you are saying in a way she also was nervous at some point, but that happens. What about Nandigram though, Prashant? Because you know, we've got to see the final numbers. Of course, she's leading and is, you know, in Nandigram. But was that a close fight? Was there any cause for tension in Nandigram?
We have always been confident that she will win comfortably in Nandigram, and I have no doubt that she will win Nandigram comfortably.
Okay, so that was never a question mark.
Not at least in our minds.
But were you fully on board with the decision of hers to fight in Nandigram? Because that was a big risk.
See, any decision that were taken, you have to take responsibility for that. You cannot say that I was part of this decision and I was not part of that decision. Any decision that was made, right or wrong, I am to take my share of responsibility.
Okay, fair enough. I just want to ask you though, have you had a chance to speak to her today at all?
Yes, many times.
And what was she say? What was the mood and what was?
But she will speak to media in couple of hours time once the numbers settle down. That should be fine.
No, but I'm asking you without betraying, you know, whatever client confidentiality. Did she seem happy with the way things were going? What was that?
First of all, she's not my client.
Okay.
I understand this relationship which you guys make so much client and transaction or contract.
Okay.
But I spoke to her. She is cheerful as she would be on her victory, and I'm sure she will speak in an hour's time or a little bit more once the numbers are a little bit more formed up.
Right, but Prashant, you know, you're saying she's not a client. Okay, then how would you describe this whole arrangement? You tell us.
How do I myself call as a political aid to whoever chooses to work with me or whoever chooses to have me work with them.
Okay, political aid.
I don't have this client and vendor relationship.
No, but Prashant, there is still a financial aspect to this, right? I mean, to get you and your team to come and work for a political party, you still have to make that transaction. And presumably they pay you, and I'm assuming it's a small amount.
You have asked this question. You have asked this question a couple of times. Let me answer it try to answer it one more time. When you involve someone like an IPAC,
yes,
an organization like IPAC, of course you pay for the campaign.
Right.
Because if there are rallies to be done, if there are research to be done, if there are surveys to be done, if there are polls to be done, that involves money because you have to deploy resources on the ground. But there is no fee. There is no office where you can walk in and say, okay, here I am with XYZ party and I want to give you X amount of check, come and work with us. No one can hire us because we are not available to be hired. We choose to work whoever we choose to work with.
Oh, I see. So people approach you, then you decide, I'll go with
and
A
if
or
you
B.
still do not, if you still do not believe,
Yes.
if you still do not believe, try your hand with somebody with the biggest possible check that could be imagined and ask them to come and try to engage IPAC and see what happens.
Okay. I can only think of one party that can, if you're talking of the biggest check, there's only one party, but I don't know if that party will either approach you or you will want to work for that party. But Prashant, come on, give us at least one or two memorable moments, some story from the election. You know, some moment that stood out for you. It could have been a high, it could have been a low. What comes to mind?
Well, Didi meeting with the accident, hurting herself, being in hospital, those 2-3 days were quite troublesome for us.
Okay.
Because it was right at the beginning of the election. We were really worried if she is not able to get out of her bed and campaign. She is the only one campaigner who we were banking on, how to come out with an alternative.
Okay.
Because if she were not able to come out of the bed or hospital and go out and campaign as actively as she finally managed to do, it would have been a bit challenging. So that would be probably the most anxious moment.
Right. But also, like, there was all this criticism that she was just doing drama and there was no real injury. So was that a concern?
Well, all these things I think people have replied and they have answered loud and clear. At least in the defeat, people should be humble enough to accept that they must have got something wrong.
So when you would
and certainly attacking her doesn't seem to have worked for BJP.
I wanted to ask you about that especially the Prime Minister with the Didi o Didi, because I attended those rallies of his, and I mean personally I found that was very problematic the way that was done, but it was drawing a big response from the crowd. What was your own sense of that from your own polling and surveys of that Didi or Didi?
Well, I told you this, probably I have said this to you in one of our conversation. If I remember correctly, you called me from that rally with the same question. I would repeat my answer. It did probably appeal to some of the BJP supporters because they enjoyed it, but it was not necessarily accepted universally, especially among the females. I don't know what BJP was getting as their feedback, but as far as our feedback is concerned, there were many people who did not found it decent enough, especially coming from the Prime Minister.
Right. Tell me a little bit, before I move to Tamil Nadu, tell me a little bit about your meetings with Mamata Banerjee, like when you'd meet, discuss strategy, things like that. How do those go normally?
Normally, she is more interested and more preoccupied with which samosa to eat and which cutlet to try. She is not somebody who sits through the long meetings.
Okay.
But whatever time we are there, whatever is needed to be discussed, she does it. Right. But she is very, very informal, even in her formal meetings.
Okay. So it's more about trying to make sure there's some nice, like snacks, samosa hai, cutlets hai, that kind of thing. What?
Yes. She is that like that. She would make sure that she gets you the best samosas from her neighborhood
samosa wala
store, or she gets the best cutlet which she can get it from her household kitchen, whatever. Even in the most serious meetings, she is like that.
What? Prashant, let me ask you this, because this is an election that the way it's been fought, the repercussions go beyond Bengal, and in a way, because of the pandemic and the manner in which there's been a lot of blowback on the government for not really managing the situation, the stakes have become even higher. What is your take on both what happens to Mamata Banerjee in terms of her role now as a political figure, a national political figure, and the implications for the BJP and Mr. Modi?
Well, no political victory could mean anything for those who have lost their loved ones, or those who are suffering today for the want of a bed or oxygen or basic medicine.
Sure.
We would like to dedicate this victory to all those who have suffered, with the hope that at least this will put some pressure on the rulers of this country, who to many left the more urgent things like addressing COVID, while they were more busy trying to win more territory like Bengal. So hopefully this defeat in Bengal would make them realize that you cannot take people for granted, you cannot abandon those who have voted for you and have put you to rule this country, and you cannot expect them to continue to vote for you despite you not doing what you are supposed to be doing.
You think this could politically hurt the BJP down the line? The whole COVID
Well, I am nobody to comment about. I don't want to make any specific commentary on that, but it is in general, as a ruler, if you are not sensitive towards the needs of the people, no matter how charismatic you are, no matter what is your organizational muscle, no matter how much resources you deploy, no matter how much system is in your support, ultimately people will make sure that you don't win.
Okay, that's the BJP and Mamata. What about the Congress? What are the takeaways from the Congress here? Because not only could they not win in Assam, they couldn't win in Kerala, where Rahul Gandhi is an MP from Kerala. This is not good for them.
Well,
yes?
Vasu, what can I say about Congress? I am too small a person to comment about Congress.
No,
this is for Congress to reflect.
Oh, come on. I mean, let's not.
See.
No, come on.
I'm telling you, this is for the Congress to reflect.
No, that's now being very diplomatic, and that's not like you. You do see this as continuing evidence that the Congress is struggling to get its act together. Mamata Banerjee was in a difficult position after the Lok Sabha elections. Big shock, BJP winning that number of seats. She took steps. She hired a Prashant Kishore, etc., etc. I'm not saying you are necessarily the answer to every political party's problems, but she took steps. She acted. We don't see the Congress doing that. That's not a problem?
Well, I cannot comment about Congress. But what I can say, that as a political party, you cannot keep saying that we are not able to defeat BJP because we do not have resource, media is not with us, system is not with us, courts are not with us. Because as a political party, you have to do your job, which is to go out and fight with all the might. Whether media is with you or not, whether you have enough resources or not. Of course, when you are in opposition, you are fighting against these things. But if people are with you, if you make a sincere effort, if people are with you, all these things, you can win despite
you can
all these
still
things.
pull it off.
Yes.
Will you be open to?
Yes. And
will you be open to
this victory in West Bengal? I hope this gives confidence to other political parties who are on the other side of the aisle vis-a-vis BJP, that if you put your act together, if you fight despite limited resources, despite odds being against you, you can defeat BJP. It's not going to be true all the time. It's not that BJP will be defeated all the time.
Right.
But yes, they can be challenged, they can be defeated with the limited resource, with the limited support of media, with the significant advantage otherwise they have because they are ruling India.
Right. Will you consider, I know you had a brush at working with the Congress, will you consider working with them again if they approach you?
No. I'm very good. I'm very happy where I am. First of all, they are 100-year-old party. As you rightly said, a Prashant Kishore, or for that matter, people like us are not the answer to fighting or winning a political battle.
No.
This is for the political party to introspect.
They
have to organize themselves. Whether it is a victory or defeat, we are contributing only on the margins. We are highly overrated. We cannot make you win or lose.
No. You're being now a little, little bit modesty of the kind which does not suit you. You're a more candid person than that. I'm asking you a straight question. it's not a question of whether you can necessarily turn things around for them or not, but if they approach you as they had earlier, will you consider it?
No, I don't think so. That question is there on the table.
That question is not on the table of the Congress.
No, not at all.
Because you are working with Congress leaders, you are working with Amrinder Singh. He recently,
I tell you, no,
he
I tell you
made
why.
you. He
I tell
recently
you
made
why.
you special advisor to the chief minister.
No, he has made me a special advisor or whatever principal advisor he calls it. That is on the government side. I have not committed to help him on the election side. See, it's not about Congress or Amrinder Singh or anybody else. There is no point in me going and working somewhere where I would not be able to do what I want to do.
Right.
It will only hurt them and it will hurt me. What is the point in me trying to work with Congress if they are not open to accept what I am suggesting?
Now we are coming to it. You are saying that it's not that you may be averse, but Congress may not be open to necessarily making that shift to the Prashant Kishore model.
It's not a question of Prashant Kishore model. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah.
They have to recognize that there is a problem and they need to do something about it.
Right.
Whether they do it themselves, whether they do it with somebody from outside or whether they don't do it, that's their call.
Right.
What can I or you do about it?
But, between Tamil Nadu and West Bengal, which was tougher? I mean, clearly, I'm assuming it had to be, West Bengal. But Tamil Nadu was much easier, or was it also a challenge?
See, no election is easy. No election is easy as the results are showing. You look at the numbers. Lot of people who thought that Tamil Nadu is a cakewalk, just you go fight and you will have 2/3 majority. Actually, it's not happening. A lot of people who thought West Bengal is very tough,
right,
and you will not get the 200 number. We are getting that number in West Bengal.
Right.
So no election is easy. It looks easy to some who sit outside. Of course, when you are taking a formidable party like BJP, who is formidable because of the way they fight election, because of the fact that they have charismatic leaders under their ranks. They are the ruling party of India. They have media completely backing them. They have unlimited resource to fight. All those things makes them formidable
but you're saying
challenger.
It's
But
never easy.
That is not to say that Tamil Nadu is easy. It's never easy. You look at the numbers in Tamil Nadu and you know yourself.
No, it's true. And also you had the challenge of someone like Stalin who's 68, and you have to sort of, rebrand him and make him say, okay, this is Stalin, this is his time, all of that, right? So that must have been challenging in its own way.
Yeah, every election, see, Tamil Nadu has its own challenge, the language, the culture, the vast state, the party which has lost their leader, Mr. Karunanidhi, they are fighting for the first time under the leadership of MK Stalin, who hasn't won an election other than the last Lok Sabha election under his leadership.
Right.
So all those things were there. You cannot say that it's very easy. Yes, you sit in Delhi and then you say Bengal is difficult, Tamil Nadu is easy. It's because you think BJP is the only party that can be a tough opponent.
No, I'm sure. Every election is a challenge. But as we start to wrap, so let me just understand this. Right now, you're working with Mamata Banerjee, you're working with Stalin. Will you continue to work with Mamata Banerjee, down the line, and Stalin?
See this, I want to quit this space. I want to quit this space and I want to be on record with you. I want to quit this space, leave IPAC to be run by the leadership team of IPAC and do something else, spend time with my families. I haven't met my wife or son for months. So I rather go and spend some time with them and then we will see where life takes.
What do you mean? This is a big thing you're saying. Are you saying you're quitting IPAC for good or you're just taking a break?
I will quit this space any which way.
You're quitting the space of doing this election management or campaign strategy, whatever you call it.
Yes. I have no desire to continue in this space any longer.
Wow. Why? If I may ask?
And all those who were trying to troll me or who are trying to tell that, BJP will cross 100, then you will be looking for a job. I am telling in the victory, I am quitting this space. I don't want to do this any longer.
1 second, this is quite a bombshell you've just dropped on live television. Why are you quitting? Because you've been part of now 2 winning
because
campaigns.
I have had enough. Because I have had enough, 8-9 years, it's a tough job. I have done it enough. I want to pursue something else in my life, I will do that. I don't have to be doing this all my life, and I have been saying this in every conversation I have with people around me.
Wow, that's quite a dhamaka.
And beyond that, there are very able people within IPAC, the guys who run the show here. I just take credit for a lot of it. Those guys, it's time for them to take over and continue to do whatever they want to do under the brand of IPAC.
No, but I must push you here because this is a sort of a, as they say, last over googly you bowled. That are you burnt out, or is it that you want to try politics now? Because you did kind of go into that space, particularly in Bihar with the JDU. Are you interested in politics? You want to jump into politics more directly?
I'm not making any. I'm just telling that I do not want to continue to do what I'm doing. I have had enough. Good, bad, ugly, whatever I had to contribute, I have done my bit.
Okay.
Now it's time for my colleagues in IPAC to take over and me to take break and consider doing something else in life.
So you're not ruling out politics?
I'm not ruling in or ruling out anything. I'm just saying that I want to quit this space.
Do all your IPAC people know this?
Most senior colleagues, they know it. Of course, they know it.
Okay, because I'm wondering if they're just listening to this right now on live television and going like, what the heck just happened? They know.
No, they know. They have spent long enough time with me to know what I think and what I want to do in my life. So they would be the least surprised ones from this announcement, if you are calling it an announcement.
Ever thought of becoming a television anchor? Just
I'm not qualified, maybe. I'm not qualified.
I see. That's very interesting, because I was actually going to ask you what next, because you had, like I said, you've got Mr. Amrinder Singh, you've got Stalin now, you've got Mamata Banerjee, 3 chief ministers, but you're saying in the middle of all this, you're walking out of this space. I think it's fair to say, Prashant, I mean,
yes.
I've known you for some time, that this does indicate that you want to jump more into the political akhada. You tried to sort of flirt with that with Bihar. You stopped short of jumping in last year, but is that pulling you now? I mean, is that a...
Well, I have said this before and I am repeating, I am a failed politician. I tried my hand, I failed miserably. I have to go back and equip myself, probably learn even before I even think about it.
I see. Okay, but that could be one particular path. Are you thinking, again, we're just doing a little bit of crystal ball gazing here, like some kind of federal front, group of coalition of parties?
Vasu, you are not getting anything out of me on this. All I'm telling is, I'm very happy that we have been able to help Didi and MK Stalin to win. Now, I think IPAC is in the firm footings as an organization. They are guided and led by very able people. They should be able to take this forward and allow me to take the break and do whatever else I want to do in my life.
Okay, fair enough. But I'm saying that, some people quit and they take up strawberry farming, or they open a bar on a beach in Goa. I'm guessing that's not the route. That's not the alternate career path which you're thinking about. I mean, I think about that sometimes, but I don't think that's your jam.
Maybe I will go and maybe I will go to Assam and with my family there, I would start doing tea gardening.
Tea gardening, right. No, this is that whole jhola uta ke main nikal jaunga. I don't think that's happening to any of
yes.
you or anyone
no,
else.
I'm serious. I'm serious. I'm
okay.
quitting, and there is no doubt about it.
Wow. Okay, that's quite a bombshell you've dropped. as I said, last over bombshell on this interview. But anyway, listen, it's been great talking to you. Congratulations once again. You know, what you do down the line is another matter. But for now, 2 big wins in Tamil Nadu and West Bengal. By the way, sorry, I wanted to ask you, I don't know if the camera is in a position where we can actually, can we see your team and kind of get a sense of, like, I don't know, is that possible at all? We can show them.
If you ask your cameraman to go and see, that will be all they can capture is the chaos around office, but they can always go and see.
Can they do that right now? Because I can't actually speak to my cameraman. Can you ask him to?
He's right here. He can go and dekh lijiye aap bahar, agar if they want to take a shot, they can. They are free to do that.
Let's try and see.
Thank you very much.
Okay, all right. Okay, we'll try and do it after this. Thanks very much indeed, Prashant Kishore, for talking to us. Thanks so much.
All right, good afternoon. We continue with our coverage of the election results. The tally on your screen right now. This is a developing situation, but the trends seem to be clear now as far as West Bengal is concerned. What a spectacular win for Mamata Banerjee, and the challengers, the Bharatiya Janata Party, not being able to cross the 3-digit mark, something that was predicted by Prashant Kishore, Mamata Banerjee's chief strategist. The BJP somewhere around 85. Of course, the BJP is still very hopeful that they will be able to take this closer to 120 odd. They feel that there are many of those swing seats where the margin between the winner and the loser is very little. So there will be some swing or the other. But if you look at the TMC's tally, they're very close to their 2016 performance. And back then, they had no challenger. They had almost no challenger in the left, and this time around, despite having a formidable opponent in the Bharatiya Janata Party, the Trinamool Congress has been able to manage 205. Remember, these are initial trends. It's quite possible that the real result may be a little different, but how different, one really does not know. This broadly seems to be the trend. Mamata Banerjee now joins us, so does Saurabh Gupta from Kalighat. Mamata, we'll come to you first. And I will repeat and ask my same old question that I've been asking you since morning. What's happening in Nandigram?
That's right. I mean, Sanket, in one short sentence, all I can say is it's turning out to be the cliffhanger of this particular battle for Bengal. Just now, I have had reports come in of the 13th round of counting, in which Mamata Banerjee has apparently crossed Shubhendu Adhikari's margin by 1453 votes, and there are 4 more rounds to go. There are already some sources claiming that she is way ahead of him and beaten him, but I'm just being a little conservative about the figures that are being hurled at me from Nandigram. So 1453 lead in the 13th round. That's what I would probably go with at the moment. This after Shubhendu was leading by something like 11,000 votes in the 11th round. So, you know, clearly the whole seesaw situation is sort of playing out right now in Nandigram, and this is promising to be, or it is really, a cliffhanger. I mean, imagine a situation where the Trinamool does brilliantly in Bengal, but Mamata Banerjee loses. I mean, is that a situation that one can even imagine? Hopefully, you know, things will sort out. Just another 3-4 rounds to go. So at the end of maybe another hour at most, we should know what Nandigram has decided. Nandigram, remember, Shubhendu Adhikari, most infamous for his comments calling Mamata Banerjee a begum and talking about Nandigram turning into a mini Pakistan after the elections should Trinamool win. I mean, clearly this is a make or break vote for Nandigram. We'll have to wait for the next 4 rounds.
Absolutely, but Mamata, whatever you may say, for Shubhendu Adhikari to be in the lead by almost 11,000 votes, and even now a very slender lead or a slender margin with which Mamata Banerjee has started to lead now, do you feel this shows that this was an extremely tough contest for the Chief Minister? Extremely tough. Still is.
Well, what a risk she took. I mean, I'm sure she went to Nandigram knowing full well what risks she was taking. I remember on the 18th of January, she was actually holding one of her first campaign rallies at Nandigram, and that's where she sort of announced out of the blue that what if I fight from Nandigram? And you know, it seemed like a terrific risk. I don't know if it was an entirely off-the-cuff decision. I'm sure they had studied the situation before in Nandigram, but it was a gauntlet she threw down to Shubhendu Adhikari, who seemed set to break her party. So she must have known what the risks were, and she took them. It was a risk, she took them, and maybe at the end of another 4 rounds, we'll know whether it's paying off or not. But certainly, the Chief Minister, leading by such a slender margin at the end of 13th round, does tell a story of its own. And I think the story here is of polarization. Nandigram, it's like an example of what we mean when we say that the vote this time in Bengal was completely polarized on grounds of religion, as we have never seen in Bengal before, but you know, somewhere along the way, that card perhaps won't see Shubhendu Adhikari through to the end. It might. Still, all open. We don't know. I mean, it's a slender margin at the moment, and it might change in Shubhendu's favor any minute. But again, what we are hearing from the ground is that the bloc with a mixed population, Hindus and Muslims, the votes from there have been finished. They have been counted. It's now the other bloc in which there is a huge minority dominance. That's where the votes are coming in from, and therefore we have this seesaw situation and a complete cliffhanger.
Okay. Saurabh Gupta is also now with us from Kalighat. Saurabh, for our viewers who are not from Kolkata or not from West Bengal, the significance of where you are, and also what are you hearing? What are the plans? I mean, the Election Commission says no celebration, but in their own muted way, what's the party planning?
Well, Sanket, before we go on to that, can I give you just a little bit of flashback? You know, what Monideepa was talking about, that rally in Nandigram where Mamata Banerjee announced that she would fight. You know, I was actually there at that rally the day she announced. And trust me, none of us had a clue. None of us had a clue. It came as a sudden decision to us. Something that many believed at that time, that she was perhaps taking the bullet for her party. Now what that does is, by picking such a tough fight for herself, she's sending A, message to the cadre, and B, that entire belt, Mednipur, is somewhere that the BJP had made inroads. So to sort of cut some of the damage, to address some of the damage, this was perhaps a strategic step that many later on analyzed the decision said. But at that time it did come as a surprise to all of us who were there even at that rally. Now coming to Kalighat, where I am, this is where Mamata Banerjee stays. She still lives in that area which is surrounded by shanties, and there's literally a storm brewing here, and I'm not making this up. The wind is hitting against my face, and this is of course how it has been for the last 10 or so minutes. Call it what you may, the Trinamool really has had reasons to celebrate, but we must remember something that even Trinamool spokespersons have admitted, that this election has come at a huge cost. The cost is lives, human lives. Elections held over such a long period of time, in the time of a pandemic, massive super spreader rallies held by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Amit Shah, and BJP President JP Nadda, all of them, and other BJP leaders who flew in from all parts of the country. Muscle power, money power, all of that pumped into this Bengal election by the BJP. But at the end of the day, one woman manages to defeat that, and that's perhaps the biggest takeaway from this election and its national imprint. The national ramifications of this election is something that we're going to see in a long, long time. And let me just briefly connect the dots for you. As soon as the news of Mamata Banerjee's victory started becoming certain, you had Sharad Pawar, who tweeted. We're also given to understand that he may call her to congratulate her. But you see this national axis against the BJP once again taking shape. And this election has decided in how firmly it's built.
All right, Saurabh Gupta, many thanks for joining us with all the latest. Let's now quickly go across to Subarna Roy, author, and also views lean towards the Trinamool Congress. Chandrakumar Bose, senior leader of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Thank you very much. Mr. Bose, we'll begin with you. Your political party can perhaps take solace in the fact that you have been a formidable opponent, but just. What happened?
I think the Bharatiya Janata Party in Bengal have done exceedingly well. From just 3 seats in 2016, we have crossed the 80 mark. But of course, we were not in a position to defeat our opponent, a formidable opponent in Mamata Banerjee. We need to do some retrospection. You see, I had always suggested to my party that in order to counter Mamata Banerjee's appeasement politics, we should always play the inclusive card. You see, Bengal politics is somewhat different. You can't really compare it with the rest of the country. Bengal would always, at least the Bengali community in Bengal, always stood for inclusive politics, inclusive ideology. I think if we would have applied this ideology, the critical vote bank, you see the 6%, which is the critical vote bank in Bengal, we missed that. We did not, we were not able to. We have, of course, substantially increased our vote bank. But I think we have come down as compared to the 2019 Lok Sabha polls. And we came down primarily, I feel, that we could not really get the support of the critical Bengali vote bank in Bengal. If you notice, Kolkata, which is predominantly an intellectual community region, we have failed to make a mark. Although I must admit that in 2019 Lok Sabha, I was able to take a lead in the Rashbihari Assembly constituency. I had gained a vote percentage of 44% as against 38% of Trinamool. But we could not really maintain that figure. We were expecting that I live in Rashbihari, and I was expecting that our candidate, who is a very good candidate, Lieutenant General Subrata Saha, would be able to win. But somehow we could not. We failed to, impress upon the Bengali intellectual community. So I think we need the retrospection. We need to, kind of readdress the strategy adopted for Bengal. And I always feel, and this is the submission I had made to the top leadership of our party, that let's do inclusive politics for Bengal, which would counter Mamata's appeasement politics.
Okay. Now, 2 important questions basis your analysis. Number 1, you said you lost the 6% critical vote bank. Can you define what this critical vote bank is? Who are these 6% people?
6% critical vote bank are the people who are inhabitants of West Bengal, primarily. You see, I don't want to, say whether Bengalis or whether, North Indians and all that. People who are resident in Bengal, people who are used to the culture of Bengal, the tradition of Bengal. I think the tradition of Bengal we need to understand. You see, nobody really is an outsider. All Bharatiyas are insiders. But you have to understand the heritage and culture of Bengal. I think we fell short in order to understand this culture.
Okay.
So the critical, you see, the intellectual community has an impact on the general voters. We were not able to somehow influence and get these intellectual community on our side, which Mamata Banerjee had done in 2011.
Okay, Mr. Bose. Now I want to ask you a question on you trying to convince your party or making this submission to them that the politics should be inclusive. I hope you realize what the opposite of this means. Are you trying to suggest that your party practiced a form of or a brand of politics that was not inclusive?
Well, I think we tried to counter Mamata Banerjee's minority appeasement by, doing a polarization politics, which I think did work. In certain areas, it did work. It worked in Nandigram to an extent. It worked in North Bengal. But overall, if you see the 294 seats that we have in Bengal, overall it has failed. Polarization never works in Bengal. At least it has not worked till today. It may work in the future. But I think that's not the right politics for Bengal. That's not the right politics for India. I think India is a country where there is unity through diversity, and all political parties must do inclusive politics. Not only the Bharatiya Janata Party. You see, I think right after independence, all parties have encouraged divisive politics. All parties have encouraged polarization, which I think is completely wrong. It's against the constitution of our country.
When you say all, you include your party as well?
Yes, I do. We must also admit our failure. This is not the right practice for India, because our constitution, our forefathers who have written the constitution of India, it is a democratic, secular nation. We cannot really counter that.
Okay.
If you counter that, it is going to fail.
Okay.
It may work for a short while, but it is not going to work in the long term.
Okay, do stay on with us, Mr. Bose, because what you seem to be saying is a very strong message to your own party. In a way, you're self-critiquing, right? I don't even know how this is going to be taken within your party setup, but if this is your honest view, well, let's see how your party is going to respond. Let's quickly get in a response from the TMC, from a TMC supporter. Mr. Subarna Roy, how would you like to respond to the BJP's assessment and also your own, the party you support, their victory?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that I'm not a TMC supporter, but I'm positively anti-BJP, and presently under the special circumstances in Bengal, I have voted for the TMC, and I'm happy that Mamata Banerjee almost single-handedly has scripted a spectacular win. And I have been glued to NDTV since 8 a.m. Almost everything has been said, but 2 or 3 points I would like to mention.
Sure.
One is about Nandigram. You see, in Nandigram, the left had fielded a very strong candidate. One should look into the specific numbers of votes she has garnered, the candidate for the left. And I think she has taken away a substantial number of votes from the Trinamool kitty, that is Mamata Banerjee's candidature. The second part, which has not been discussed, is the phenomenal voting share or the voting percentage in Bengal this time, which is almost, barring a few constituencies, it has been 80 to 85%, approximately 5 to 10% more than what has been casted last time. So, you see, whenever there is a higher percentage of vote share in any election, the general wisdom is that it is going to be anti-incumbent. But in this case, BJP and its cohorts had taken the pitch and the campaign to such a level, communal, bad-pitched, foul-mouthed, and various other adjectives could be added on. That's not the point. That people, I think, this time voted more and more to see this past the middle-aged a woman alone, because Mamata Banerjee at one point in time said this also, that please think that all the 294 seats, today it is 292, but all the 294 seats, as if I'm standing there for winning the election. So I think this 80-85% was surely not anti-incumbent, this 5 to 10% increase in vote. Secondly, Mamata Banerjee and her senior leadership will have to now think that she cannot repeat the 2013 of Sharoda, 2016 of Naroda, 2018 Panchayat elections, the experience of the Panchayat elections, and the relief of Amphan cyclone in 2019. She has to create a new narrative, entirely a new narrative of governance this time, because people have put their trust and faith in her and her governance for the third time, and she has to do remarkably well in this sphere.
Despite all the resentment associated with these incidents.
Exactly. And I think the first thing that she needs to do is how she will handle the COVID pandemic, because you see, before the starting of the election, we were at 3,000 plus infections, and today we are at somewhere near 60,000 because of this inhuman 8-phase elections.
Correct.
So now there is an additional burden and load on Mamata Banerjee's government. There will be an additional burden on Mamata Banerjee's government to handle this COVID crisis,
True.
which she did very well in 2020, of course. And secondly, garnering employment for the new urban youth. I think that will be another second challenge.
Okay. I think some important points that you have mentioned here. Some very important point, Mr. Roy, that you seem to have mentioned here. Very quickly,
and I want to make one more point, and I think the time has come. There was a very interesting conversation between Vasu and Prashant Kishore.
Yeah.
I'm very unhappy to note that he is leaving this space, but I think that time has come when Mamata Banerjee, M.K. Stalin, Pinari Vijayan, Arvind Kejriwal, Amrinder Singh should invest their personal time in creating an anti-BJP forum for 2024 and gradually incorporate people like Naveen Patnaik, KCR and Jagan Mohan Reddy in the whole battle.
Well, in a weird way, it was Mr. Prashant Kishore who was doing this. He seemed to be this unifying factor between all the opposition ranks. I get the point that you're making. Mr. Bose, very quickly coming back to you. Mr. Bose, coming quickly back to you. Now, you tell me, you seem to be very self-critical as far as your party is concerned on it being, and if I heard you correctly, practicing the same divisive and polarized politics that many political parties have practiced in the past. Do you think this is the reason for the BJP to not have succeeded as much as they wanted in West Bengal? Because see, if everybody does it and so has the BJP, then what is wrong? Everybody did it.
See, BJP has done exceedingly well. I've already stated that. But having said that, in order to strike a balance, in order to defeat Mamata Banerjee, I think the only method is to do inclusive politics. I don't believe in using religious symbols for political purposes. It does not work. You see, if Mamata has to be defeated, we need to do something opposite of Mamata. If we also do appeasement of the majority community, how are we different compared to Trinamool Congress? So we need to stand apart as a party. Our leadership has to stand apart and give an example, set an example, which is anti what Mamata Banerjee has been practicing. As we say, appeasement of the minority. We have to do inclusive politics. We have to work for the welfare of all religious communities, all stratas of society. Then we would be able to strike the critical vote bank of 6%, which is the winning vote bank. Or winning percentage.
All right, Mr. Roy as well as Mr. Bose, thank you very much for joining us. Let's now quickly go back to that interview that Mr. Roy was referring to. That interview of Prashant Kishore with my colleague Srinivasan Jain, in which he almost announced that this is or could be the end of his strategizing with IPAC. Let's listen in to what he said.
Let me just understand this. Right now, you're working with Mamata Banerjee, you're working with Stalin. Will you continue to work with Mamata Banerjee, down the line, and Stalin?
See, this, I want to quit this space. I want to quit this space and I want to be on record with you. I want to quit this space, leave IPAC to be run by the leadership team of IPAC and do something else, spend time with my families. I haven't met my wife or son for months. So I rather go and spend some time with them, and then we will see where life takes.
What do you mean? This is a big thing you're saying. Are you saying you're quitting IPAC for good, or you're just taking a break?
I will quit this space any which way.
You're
Yes.
quitting the space of doing this election management or campaign strategy, whatever you call it.
Yes, yes. I have no desire to continue in this space any longer.
Wow. Why? If I may ask?
And all those who were trying to troll me or who are trying to tell that, BJP will cross 100, then you will be looking for a job. I am telling in the victory, I am quitting this space. I don't want to do this any longer.
1 second. This is quite a bombshell you've just dropped on live television. Why are you quitting? Because you've been part of now 2 winning
because
campaigns.
I have had enough. Because I have had enough, 8-9 years, it's a tough job. I have done it enough. I want to pursue something else in my life, I will do that. I don't have to be doing this all my life, and I have been saying this in every conversation I have with people around me.
Wow, that's quite a dhamaka.
And beyond that, there are very able people within IPAC, the guys who run the show here. I just take credit for a lot of it. Those guys, it's time for them to take over and continue to do whatever they want to do under the brand of IPAC.
No, but I must push you here, because this is a sort of a as they say, last over googly you bowled. That are you burnt out, or is it that you want to try politics now, because you did kind of go into that space, particularly in Bihar with the JDU. Are you interested in politics? You want to jump into politics more directly?
I'm not making any, I'm just telling that I do not want to continue to do what I'm doing. I have had enough good, bad, ugly, whatever I had to contribute. I have done my bit.
Okay.
Now it's time for my colleagues in IPAC to take over and me to take break and consider doing something else in life.
So you're not ruling out politics?
I'm not ruling in or ruling out anything. I'm just saying that I want to quit this space.
Do all your IPAC people know this?
Most senior colleagues, they know it. Of course they know it.
Okay, because I'm wondering if they're just listening to this right now on live television and going like, what the heck just happened? They know.
No, they know. They have spent long enough time with me to know what I think and what I want to do in my life. So they would be the least surprised ones from this announcement, if you are calling it an announcement.
Ever thought of becoming a television anchor? Just
I'm not qualified, maybe. I'm not qualified.
I see. That's very interesting, because I was actually going to ask you what next, because you had, like I said, you've got Mr. Amrinder Singh, you've got Stalin now, you've got Mamata Banerjee, 3 chief ministers, but you're saying in the middle of all this, you're walking out of this space. I think it's fair to say, Prashant, I mean,
yes.
I've known you for some time, that this does indicate that you want to jump more into the political akhada. You tried to sort of flirt with that with Bihar. You stopped short of jumping in last year, but is that pulling you now? I mean, is that a...
Well, I have said this before and I am repeating, I am a failed politician. I tried my hand, I failed miserably. I have to go back and equip myself, probably learn even before I even think about it. All I am telling is, I am very happy that we have been able to help Didi and MK Stalin to win. Now, I think IPAC is in the firm footings as an organization. They are guided and led by very able people. They should be able to take this forward and allow me to take the break and do whatever else I want to do in my life.
All right, and towards the end, maybe we could have extended this clip a little longer when Vasu pressed Mr. Prashant Kishore a little harder on what exactly will he do. He did talk about perhaps going to Assam, maybe, to the tea gardens. Of course, he was joking. Let's now quickly take a look at the numbers from Tamil Nadu. We'll put Tamil Nadu on your screen right now as to what exactly is happening. Another state where IPAC, Prashant Kishore's organization, helped propel the DMK to a victory position. So the DMK combined is at 140. Remember, this is a 234-member assembly. The AIADMK, which is, of course, they were the incumbent, are at 92. The DMK plus at well over 140, with the Congress having a lead in 17, which is a very significant win given the fact that they only were given 25 seats. So that's a victory for the DMK. However, for the AIADMK, the incumbents, this is not a rout. This is not a bad performance. They will make for a formidable opposition, thus laying to rest all sorts of speculation that post Jayalalitha, the AIADMK flock will not be together and will struggle as a political force. That's really not the case if you take a look at the numbers. Uma Sudhir as well as Sam Daniel are now with us. Uma, let me first come to you. Would you like to take this question as to, a lot was said about the fortunes of the AIADMK, that they will cease to exist or break or not exist. There will be a whole lot of problem. That doesn't seem to be the case when you look at these numbers. However, they have not won, but they're still a formidable force.
Yes, indeed, Sanket. Starting with Prashant Kishore, in fact, this is an election that MK Stalin had to win, given all the factors that were, in a sense, in his favor. And this was an election he could not have lost in any case. That they ended up with 140, certainly creditable. But more importantly, like you pointed out, that the AIADMK ended up with 80 plus or will be ending up with an 80 plus is something very creditable. And all the talk about the AIADMK is probably going to now just fritter away and there will be no party left. EPS, despite not having the charisma of Jayalalitha or an MGR, he has shown that he is a leader who can deliver, and that's the reason why from the Kongu belt, from where in fact he is headed for a very impressive victory, I must say, from Edappadi itself. The Chief Minister has managed to also get the northern belt, and that's how they are ending up with these kind of numbers, the western belt and the northern belt, where in fact, if you remember, the master stroke of including the one-year community, giving them an internal quota of 10.5% within the MBC quota of 20%, and people had predicted that there will be a reverse consolidation of the other castes and so on and so forth, but his calculation seems to have worked well, and that's the reason why the one-year, both the Patali Makkal Katchi, which is a one-year party, as well as the AIADMK per se as the plus, is doing well in both these regions and managed to get that 80 plus, which means with the AMMK, with TTV Dinakaran not doing well, already EPS has shut the doors on Sasikala, and despite that, he's managed to do well and do a creditable performance despite having all these factors of an anti-incumbency one, of what was seen as a burden of going with the BJP, the perception being that the BJP is not a very popular party in Tamil Nadu, and the fact that there was so much of infighting within the party, and that the AIADMK vote itself was split in Tamil Nadu, with the AMMK taking away a lot of Tevar vote, it was thought. From the DMK side, of course, they have swept the Chennai region. They have done very well in the Delta region, which is the central region, and the southern region as well. In the Chennai region, I must point out that they are in fact getting out of the Chennai, Tiruvallur, Kanjipuram, out of 37 seats, they are getting 33, which is very good. And out of only 4 seats for the AIADMK, DMK is getting again in the southern region, out of 51 seats, they are getting 35. That was considered, South was again considered a stronghold of the AIADMK. And the third part, of course, the Delta and central region, the anger of the farmers also perhaps showing up in the out of the 44 seats in the Delta region, 34 going to the DMK. The BJP, which was seen as, which is in fact a junior partner, but was seen as a party that was sitting in the driver's seat. It had contested about 20 seats, and it seems to be doing reasonably well in 4 or 5, which is not bad for a party which did not have too much of a footprint in Tamil Nadu at all. And as you mentioned, The Congress, in fact, unlike elsewhere, the story of the Congress in Tamil Nadu seems to be pretty decent, that out of the 25 seats, they are leading at least in 17, and also won the Kanyakumari. They seem to be heading towards a big victory. The Lok Sabha bypoll that happened because of the death of the of Mr. Vasant Kumar, the father, and now the son had contested the same seat, and they are looking to get the Kanyakumari seat.
Okay.
Back to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one other point, Sanket, the other, we were calling this a five-cornered contest, and this is nowhere a five-cornered contest as we are seeing. As always, the Dravidian parties remain the lead players here. National parties very, very marginal. And the three new players, whether you call it the AIADMK, the Nam Tamil Katchi, not a new party, but someone who contested all 234 seats.
Absolutely.
And the MNM, Makkal Needhi Mayyam, which had come as a new hope, perhaps only managing to hold on to the seats that the leader, Mr. Kamal Hassan, contested in Coimbatore South. Even there, that is seeming like quite a tough fight there as well. But yes, only holding on to that one seat, and therefore it's only the Dravidian parties which continue to alternate power.
Correct. Sam is also with us. Sam, let's talk about the victors, the DMK. What was their internal projection on how much they are going to get? Because this does seem to be a victory, but at the same time not as big or as convincing as one would think it to be, because you've got the AIADMK, which has largely been able to control its losses, right? It's not like they've suddenly been swept out of power. Yes, they will not lead in Tamil Nadu, but they will make for a formidable opponent, a formidable opposition. What was the DMK's calculation?
Well, Sanket, the DMK was hopeful of getting around 180 plus seats, and even now as we speak, some leaders say still many rounds are yet to be completed, and in some constituencies where they believe they could have some clusters, they expect a turnaround which could improve their tally. That is their belief. But for two reasons they wanted a big number. One, this is the first state election after Karunanidhi, the founder of DMK, died, and this election was also seen to be a kind of a poll that will catapult Stalin to be a very popular leader after the loss of both iconic leaders, Jayalalitha and Karunanidhi. For that, they wanted a big victory, not just enough to form a government, but to win it big. In that sense, it's a disappointment, although the DMK at the moment would certainly form the government. We'll have to wait and watch how the tally changes in the rest of the day. And certainly they say that Stalin anyway has now emerged to be a very popular leader with a clear mandate, and someone who also led the party to a huge victory after Karunanidhi died in the 2019 Lok Sabha elections, in which the DMK Congress alliance swept the polls, and they were hoping for a repeat of that. Of course, the AIADMK has lost, but it's still a formidable force. In one sense, many compare it to the outcome of the 2016 elections, switching sides. At that time, the DMK had emerged a strong opposition party with 98 seats in its kitty with Congress in its alliance. And on those lines, the AIADMK has now emerged, maybe a few seats less this time. But it will be interesting to see who would be now the leader of opposition, because there is always a tussle between Chief Minister EPS and his deputy OPS. Now that the party has lost, well, OPS, who is the number one in the party in that sense, as the chief coordinator, would he want to become the opposition leader, which would mean that he is the chief minister and waiting for the other elections, maybe 5 years down the line. That's something we'll have to wait and watch. But otherwise, certainly, BJP is quite happy since they won around 4 to 5 seats. At the moment, they are set to win around 4 to 5 seats in a state where they were completely rejected a couple of years ago, where people always claimed that the BJP cannot have a kind of a presence here. In that sense, BJP is quite happy. Dinakaran, again, although he was believed to be splitting AIADMK's votes, he himself has not been able to win. Kamal Hassan's party, which again was very hopeful of making a dent in the absence of both Karunanidhi and Jayalalitha, at the moment it looks like only Kamal Hassan would be able to win. Nobody else has been able to win any respectable numbers at the moment. And I'm at the DMK headquarters where party sources say the formation of the next government could be as early as Wednesday, depending on how soon the EPS government will put in their papers. Although we had celebrations here a couple of hours ago, including bursting of crackers and distribution of sweets, police very soon came in and they made sure they comply with the Election Commission's norm and they chased away people. MK Stalin also issued a statement asking people not to really come and aid spread of the disease, and he wanted them to respect.
But these assurances don't seem to work on supporters who are simply extremely enthusiastic when their party wins. Thank you very much, Sam Daniel, as well as Uma Sudhir. So whether it's the AIADMK which is celebrating about the fact that it may have lost, but it's not lost its base post the death of J. Jayalalitha, a DMK celebrating for the fact that they've won, a Congress celebrating that they've improved their strike rate, which has always been the complaint of all alliance partners against the Congress, that they bargain this much and deliver only this much, and the BJP for making some inroads in Tamil Nadu. So for four political parties, Tamil Nadu has not been very bad news. But as far as the others are concerned, does Tamil Nadu prove that they were non-starters, to say the very least? Let's now quickly shift to Kerala. We'll put the Kerala numbers on screen right now, where the LDF is taking or perhaps leading a departure from tradition of a pendulum form of politics in Kerala and coming back to power with 94 seats. Congress and Alliance, UDF as they say, is down to 44. So this is not great performance for the Congress party, especially in a state which is known to vote the opponent in power in a pendulum style. Let's quickly listen in to what the Health Minister of Kerala, K.K. Shailaja, had to say.
Well, we are coming to you from Kannur. This, of course, is the home district of not only the Chief Minister who governed Kerala for 5 years, but also the Health Minister who has led Kerala for the last 5 years, K.K. Shailaja. Well, Minister, first question, congratulations already.
Thank you.
Considerable lead for you.
Yeah, for me, not only me, but also the left front, we will get a considerable lead. The result is coming like that,
So, how's the party responding? Ready for the second consecutive government?
Definitely. Our Honorable Chief Minister announced throughout these days that LDF government will come back. Because such kind of development activities was taken during these 5 years under the leadership of our Honorable Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan. And because of that, we were sure that we will come again to the office.
Minister, it's also a very tough time. I don't know how much of the happiness of coming back to power, that of course exists, but there's an immediate challenge, and that is the COVID situation. Of course, the left government has been at the forefront of it, but would you be the health minister?
That we cannot predict, The left front will decide that after the victory or after winning the election.
The leads are historic for left. It's a consecutive second win. At least the leads are predicting towards that. Why do you think the left government has got this kind of a response? And I know amid a pandemic, the left government also made their efforts towards what they did to contain the pandemic as their campaign.
Yes, there are two reasons for that, for this very good majority or people support. One is that throughout the 5 years, we have so many development activities like for important missions, life mission for building houses and the reforms in the education sector, and also Ardhra mission for reforms in health sector, and also the Harita Kerala mission for the cleaning and this cultivation of organic food, etc. And that is why people are with us, because they were doing that. With the help of the government, they were involving the most of the people involved in this mission, and they are the part of the mission now also. And the second thing is, during the hardships, how a government act. That is the most important question. We have so many challenges due to the during the 5 years. one hurricane occurred called Oki and 2 floods occurred during the season, and also Nipah virus attack and also COVID-19 attack, everything occurred here. But what did the government did? But the government, under the leadership of our brave comrade Pandrai, our chief minister, we were fighting against it with the help of the people. He said that we will overcome all these difficulties with the help of our people, and we trust in our people, and people also trust in our capacity, and we worked hard and overcome all these difficulties. And during the COVID season, we declared 20,000 crores package for the poor people. We supplied food kits to all houses, and our workers reached in each and every houses to check whether any kind of diseases are there, whether they are starving or not, if they need any help. That is the system of governance here. Because of the decentralized planning and the people-centered planning, we were with the people and people were with us.